Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another episode of People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys have sent me over the past week. I would say we have a pretty average episode. I think we might have one newbie, but in terms of the quality of questions, it's all pretty standard. So let's jump right into them with the first question coming from Eric. And he wants to know, if I had to get teleported into any horror game, which one would I choose? I wouldn't want to be teleported into any horror game. I don't do horror. I mean, horror doesn't really work all that well, but to actually be thrown into any of those situations, okay. If I had to pick, I would pick Resident Evil 2, and the second that you know that famous Raccoon City billboard that you see clear drive past. The second I see that billboard, I will literally turn my ass around and walk the other way. That would be the extent of my experience in Resident Evil 2. So that's my answer. Next question comes from Cassidy Jay Williams. He wants to know, what did I think of Russell Case's sacrifice at the end of Independence Day? Oh, I thought that was a fantastic ending because I didn't expect that. To think that the drunk, the man that was supposedly abducted by aliens, is the one that ends up saving the day. Yeah, I thought that was great. I think that's, definitely in the top 10 greatest endings or sacrifices in a movie ever. So, yeah, I thought it was awesome. Next question comes from Notorious 1972. Very interesting name, and I think you're the only newbie of the episode. And you want to know, how much do I think Cloud improved from Final Fantasy VII to Advent Children? Do I think that Cloud could beat Titus? I talked about this on two specific occasions. There is a massive difference between Cloud at the end of 7 and Advent Children. He absolutely improved, and just to give you guys a heads up, the sun's going down, so if I get darker, that's why. What Cloud was able to do in that 2-year period between 7 and Advent Children is he completely rebuilt his fighting style, and he actually built it on top of what he had copied from Zack, and he made improvements, and he actually fixed it, and then he actually incorporated elements that he had learned from Sephiroth. And that's the difference between someone like Zack and Cloud, or Advent Children Cloud, is his defenses were significantly improved upon, and he incorporated speed-like offenses, especially of a dual sword wielding type of weapon that had multiple different variations of swords, which allowed him to constantly change up his offense. He made improvements to Zack's form that Zack never lived long enough to do. And so if he were to take on Titus, it would be an absolute stomp. In fact, in my Titus versus Zack, in my Titus versus Cloud matchup, I even incorporate that. I think that Cloud losing to Titus would encourage him to actually incorporate the speed-like type of offense into his own offense. That's why I believe someone like Zack could beat Titus, but Cloud can't. Zack spent years training against a hologram of Sephiroth, and at least when he went up against the real version, he could just barely hold his own. So anything less than that should be something he should be able to contend with. But with Cloud, he may have copied the skill set, he did not copy the mindset. So he had the skill set to respond to that type of offense, but he didn't know how to incorporate it properly. It wasn't until Advent Children, when he learned how, that he became a significantly better fighter, which, in my opinion, he became the second greatest sword fighter in all of Final Fantasy. So I would say that is a massive improvement to do in just 2 years. Next question comes from All-Star Gamer Punk. You want to know, out of all the styles from Devil May Cry 3, which style would I like to have in real life? Easy. I would like to have Quicksilver. The ability to snap my fingers and have time slow down. I could think of a number of uses in my practical life that I could use that for. No question. Next question comes from Brady Burrick. You want to know, do I think that Sephiroth's actions are justified in the way because of his tragic past in life that he could have been saved? No, I don't think he's justified. Look, just because you find that you're a genetic monster doesn't mean that you should, do what you think you should. He basically went insane through his own origins. It's like, oh, Jenova wanted to take over the planet. Well, she is technically my genetic mother. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have all these abilities. I'm just going to continue on her work, but I'm going to take it to a whole nother level than she ever did. And so, no, I don't think Sephiroth is justified in any sense. And no, I don't think he could be safe, and I don't think he would want to. Next question comes from Santica Scarpino. You want to know, is there any character that I didn't like at first, but as the game or slash movie or whatever went on, the character became one of my favorites? No. No. First impressions are everything. There are certain characters that you look at them at the beginning and there's potential, but if you flat out don't like this character from the very beginning, it's very unlikely you'll like them by the end. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying for me, I can't recall a character like that I ended up liking by the end. Like, if I didn't like you at the very beginning, chances are I did not like you. Like, I mean, there might be a few characters I think were tolerable, but in terms of becoming my favorites, no. That never happened. Next question comes from V Blader 1. You want to know, if I had a chance to invest time into researching a characters from an anime series, what series would I prefer? If I had time, I would probably like to spend time studying Yu Hakusho characters, because I just finished watching this series, but there's a good amount about each character, or the primary four, that I think I would need just a little bit more time. Maybe seeing what the manga has. Like, I'm sure the anime cut out a few things, but yeah, I would probably pick that series of characters to want to incorporate if I had the time to. Next question comes from Virgil, son of Sparta. You want to know, how would I handle myself if I were in the alien universe? Okay, see, here's the problem with your question. You're not telling me where I am in the alien universe. Like, if I'm on Earth, and those ships are going to the colony islands, then I would just stay on Earth and not do anything. I would not want to leave the planet. Like, it doesn't. The thing about the xenomorph outbreak is that it never happens on Earth. Every single movie wants to prevent it from ever getting back to Earth, and they all succeeded, even going back all the way to Alien 4 Resurrection. I mean, they were on their way to Earth, but their whole plan is, we can't let the ship get to Earth. And so as long as I'm on the planet Earth, I don't have anything to worry about. Now, I know that if you talk about Alien versus Predator, then, you have sometimes you have a few aliens on the planet, but, that's far away from where I would be. But, yeah, I would just not take part in anything. I would just stay the hell away from these things as quickly as I could. Next question comes from Harshly Critical, interesting name. You want to know, what is my favorite game? That's easy. Metal Gear Solid 3 is my all-time favorite video game of all time. Next question comes from Silver Lionheart 2099. You want to know, what do I think is going to happen with DMC franchise after Devil May Cry 5, and where would I take it? I would retire it. I would end it, and I probably wouldn't reboot it again for another 10 years. I think that if this is going to be the end of the series, or technically I've heard that it's going to be the end of the Sons of Sparta series, and so it's possible that they could continue it with Nero, and if they want to do that, that's fine. But in terms of, having Dante and Virgil involved, which we don't even know if Virgil's going to be in this game, because, there's a lot of people that think so, but until I physically see him, I'm still holding back my reservations on that. But, yeah, give it a generation or two, then reboot it with a new character, new settings, maybe keep some things the same. But put it like this. If DMC, as much as I hate that, had that come out after Devil May Cry 5, I think I would have been okay with it. My problem with DMC is that it's a game that came out at a time where it wasn't necessary. The franchise was in a pretty good position, and my only complaint towards Devil May Cry 4 was that I just didn't like how they only used Dante for backtracking, and playing the game was a lot fun playing as Dante than it was Nero. That was my only complaint towards Devil May Cry 4. Other than that, it is without question my second favorite Devil May Cry game in the series. So I think that's what I would do with it. Next question comes from Marcus Rienien, and he wants to know, what are the top 5 worst Mortal Kombat characters? That's easy. Cobra, Kai, Mocap Man, Meat, and Hushao. Or Hushao, which even the creator of that character said he hated that character. So those are the top 5 that I think are hated. And the last question comes from Cashis Boxley. You want to know, which lightsaber form Sora could master? Looking at Sora, I think the forms he would probably favor is 1, 5, and 6. He's not as he doesn't have the precision. He's not as precise, so he couldn't do 2. His defenses aren't as perfected, or they're not nearly as fluid, so he couldn't do 3. 4, he's not jumping around enough. 5 would help him just against other blade wielded opponents. 6 would work because he can incorporate magic, and The 9-man form also has a dual wielding function, which obviously works with his other forms. And 7, I just don't think he is as aggressive, and that's a very, very difficult ability to master. So yeah, I would say the 3 he would probably prefer to use is 1, 5, and 6. And those are the questions that were sent to me for this particular episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys who sent in your questions to make this episode possible. If you have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday, roughly around noon before I start filming the next episode. And like always, make sure it's only one question per person, and I will see you next time.